in terms of what we're doing, these pay figures come from the BBC's annual report, and in this report, it actually shows that what we want to do is already happening. So it shows that 250,000 people, 250,000 people, actually cancelled their license fee last year, didn't renew it. Either moved to Netflix, figured out that if they watch online, they don't need it. People are waking up. So this report, that's the good news. Let's start with that. That people are already walking away from this bloated, expensive, failing organisation. So essentially, what we want to do is we want to decriminalise it. We think that it is fundamentally immoral that people are paying for people like Gary Lineker, for some of the news reports that fundamentally they don't like, on pain of jail. It's just absurd. Yeah. So by the end of the year, we want that to happen, and luckily, it's already happening.
Yeah, the key thing is, if you don't like what you're listening to here or any of our sister stations, you can say, well, I won't listen anymore, and you don't have to pay for it, and that's the option, isn't it? Well, look, talking about this, £1 million pay rise for Zoe Ball, and as Tom Slater was just pointing out, the BBC seems very, very concerned with targets, with quotas, with diversity, and their big concern in the last couple of years has been, gender pay gap, how terrible it is that lots of the top stars, virtually all the top stars, were men. But again, I would argue, well, if and when any of those top female stars have been the captain of the England football team, maybe they'll earn 1.6 million. But I'm wrong, 1.7 million, because Zoe Ball has now been given a pay rise after taking over the Radio 2 breakfast show, 1.36 million. Do you think all of that was done just so they, and Gary Lineker agreeing to that pay cut, just so they could just, put the attention on Zoe? It would be a woman earning the top money. And for them, they think that, as Tom Slater says, they genuinely think that they've scored a really clever point there.
I can't speak on the gender issue, but I do think it's extremely interesting that these pay figures started coming out 4 years ago, and people, rightly so, people wanted to know where their taxes are going, like we know with other taxes. And people started scrutinising them. The BBC 4 years ago started promising to bring these numbers down. Now, in the last couple of years, the primary focus when these figures have come out has been on the so-called gender pay gap. And now you would have thought that the BBC would have thought, right, let's bring these pay packets down. Now we're getting scrutinised, we're getting criticised, let's bring them into line with other sectors. No, their solution to this problem and the alleged gender pay gap was to push the pay up. And people have pointed out that this year a lot of some of these female stars that have gone up. Now, I can't speak of whether or not they deserve it or not, but it is particularly notable that some of the serious pay rises seem to be for the sort of people who are not performing. As you point out, Zoe Ball picked up a pound for nearly £1 million, nearly £1 a year for every listener she's lost on Radio 2. Some of the other ones include Lauren Laverne, whose Desert Island Discs really has not been good. And Fiona Bruce picked up a nearly £200,000 pay rise. And I think that, you might view these as isolated incidents. You might say this is because of a really a good instinct to correct this gender pay gap. But really, I think this is actually symptomatic of a structural, fundamental problem with the BBC, that pay and money is not tied to performance in the same way that it would be in a business, like any other radio station, like any other newspaper. If you're not performing and the customers aren't paying and you're not bringing in the readers and the listeners, you don't get paid for it.
Yeah,
but the BBC is using our money in a really grotesque way. They're just throwing it at stars to try for these political reasons.
But also we have the issue with the senior managers. Managerial salaries, got 106 of them on more than £150,000 a year, a total of £5.8 million bill for the BBC board and executive committee. It's up from 5.4 million. There is a huge amount of money being spent on a lot of people we'd never even see and aren't sort of much loved stars. Just paper pushers. Who knows what any of these people do. That's obviously an issue, but it's the main issue here, though, that we have got a BBC that is out of touch. We saw, didn't we, with the row over Rule Britannia and Land of Hope and Glory at the proms, and we've seen it again and again, and a lot of the choice of programming, the obsession with Black Lives Matter, the obsession with diversity, obsessions with climate change, things like that. There's so much virtue signalling, finger wagging, so much Brexit Brexit bashing, we've seen that for the last 4 years as well at the BBC, by a supposedly neutral taxpayer-funded body. That is the concern for a lot of people. They don't mind paying the licence fee, except that they think that the people, are probably quite right, the people working at the BBC absolutely despise them.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the issue of bias has been swirling around for many years, and I think a lot of people are convinced that it's getting worse. I think it's absolutely certain that it is. I mean, when you look at the median wage here is £45,000, which is 83% higher than the national average. Okay, 76 on-air presenters are earning more than the Prime Minister. Okay, and when you look at issues like Brexit, which were largely animated by class, okay, when you look at issues like identity politics and sort of these middle-class metropolitan obsessions, it's not hard to understand why the BBC is so far removed from your average British voter. Okay, you know, people at the BBC say this is perception. You know, we're not right about this. But I think when you see these hard figures, you can see that they are removed from your average person.
Yeah.
Okay, and people on the left and the right are absolutely sick of being forced to pay for this.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, some of the things that Tim Davies, the new Director General incoming, has just said have been really quite notable. He's admitted what the BBC has denied for so long, that they are awash with bias. He admitted that straight away. He did
promise. I have to interrupt there because we are running out of time. That he did promise that, you know, stars would not be virtue signaling and tweeting their political views. Gary Lineker apparently is going to have to stop doing that. But we shall see whether indeed that is actually going to happen or not. I wait with interest. Liam Deacon, Head of Press at Defund the BBC. Thank you very much for joining us.